So this town also had a aura of mysticism or mystique about it. There were strange events that happened here. The first year we were here, there was another couple that was moving into town, and they had a 3-year-old girl who wandered off and ended up down by the hairpin, close to the train tracks, and actually got hit by the train. She didn't die, but I don't think that her life was ever the same afterwards.
Yeah, so there was a guy that was renting a basement apartment in Floriston, and he was a single guy that kind of kept to himself, and apparently he was out drinking late one night, and he came home and fell asleep just as he was kind of cresting the rise below the yellow house there, and went off, launched himself off into that ravine below, and he must have been going fast enough that he cleared the brush, because there was no evidence along the shoulder of him leaving the road.
On that bad turn going out of town, he missed that turn and went over the edge of the hill and crashed down below with the car on top of him, killing him. And his body wasn't found for months.
I think he had a little problem with alcohol, probably, and he disappeared. He wouldn't find. Nobody saw him for a week. They come around here looking for him, and nobody'd seen him.
Except that there was this stench that started coming out of the ravine, right? And at the time, that wasn't uncommon for deer or other animals to get hit on the tracks, and we just figured that there was a deer that had gotten hit and knocked down in the ravine, so we didn't think too much about it at first.
Some of the kids in town, and actually I don't think any of them are even still alive anymore, were looking for choke cherries, or picking choke cherries down in that bog down there. And there's other wrecked cars down in there, and they found this other one, and when they looked at it, they realized that there was a body under it.
He told me that when he came around the side of the car and looked inside, that guy was belted into his car, hanging upside down, and he'd been decapitated, and there was just his spine was sticking out from between his shoulders. A little stub of his spine was sticking out from between his shoulders.
We had some friends visit one time that when she came to this house, she became very, very uncomfortable. She said there was a presence here that was disturbing, and in fact she hasn't been back since.
She said ghost followed her home.
She said ghost followed her home. The whole concept of ghosts is, I think we all create a lingering presence. You know, our memories go on, and what I've tried to do is fill up everything with weird artwork and stuff like that. I've never felt like this house had anything other than wholesomeness to it.
They might have been nice ghosts.
They might have been nice ghosts. Who knows?
Well, one day I had a knock on the door, and these two gentlemen. This was like 8 o'clock at night, in the winter where it's dark early, and these two gentlemen were at the door, and they said, "Excuse me, but I understand you have keys to the schoolhouse, and we'd like to go and test for spirits in the schoolhouse." They had a card and everything. That was something they were doing, going around to different locations. And so we went over to the schoolhouse and we set up all the equipment, and they had all kinds of odd equipment, and they tested and tested, and they said all kinds of things were happening in there. People that were murdered, and people that were locked in closets, and people that were talking to them, and They said a few things that kind of like made your hair kind of stand up on end and made you wonder a little bit, but. Well, yeah, it was really rather odd. They had this flicker light going here because said that they could tell when a spirit would pass through it. And then they had like walkie-talkies that words would come up on it. And they had a couple machines here that made a lot of noises. Yeah. They said all kinds of odd things, but.
I think when you consider that this house is over 100 years old, that a number of people had to have lived here, died here, maybe even been born here, because I think that we are more than just our physical selves, so that the possibility of leaving something behind when you go is not foreign to me, and the fact that other people may have done that is not disturbing. I think it's just part of nature.
Okay, now we're going to talk about the car over the cliff. There's several cars over there, but the most recent one from probably 1980 was a 1967 Opel, and my dad had it, and he gave it to me as my first car. And a neighbor had one just like it and gave me another one, so I had two of those. But I would take it up to the auto shop at Truckee High School, and the teacher up there hated that car, and I never could understand why. It was only 10 years old, or 11 years old, and geez, an 11-year-old car nowadays is brand new. He hated that car. So eventually, I graduated, brought the car home, drove it home because it still ran. I sold it to my buddy here in Floriston, Daryl. He was a high school senior, and he took it back up to Truckee High and back to auto shop. And that teacher had a fit. Absolutely, he just had a fit to see that car again. And so Daryl had kept it there throughout the whole season and driving the teacher crazy. And it got to the point where he needed to pass auto shop. And that teacher told him that, because the teacher hated me forever for selling that car to him and having it go back up there. So he said, "You'll graduate my class if, right now you got an F, but you'll graduate my class if you tow that car down and throw it off the cliff in front of Dennis's house." They did. He had a friend that had a tow company. They brought that car down and threw it off the cliff in front of my house, and I will thank Mr. Kennedy, the auto shop teacher from Truckee High School, in the day.
It seems like there was a lot of musicians and artists and university people that were attracted to the area.
Oh, and we melt apart, just like the winter wind, and now we show our hearts to many of them. Go away then, back to all the days when facing, and it's now that we walk. Oh, 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 oh. Till the day we walk the face. And I'm reminded every day we'll fall back together once again. Oh, I guess I'll see you there. I'm reminded every time I see your face, we'll fall back together once again. Oh, I guess I'll This is definitely one of my most favorite pieces, but my wife painted this, and it's a series piece.
Come and see these spectacular. These were some of his early work. His stuff is fantastical. This is Benny the Bee basking in the buttercups. Oh, this is one of my favorites. This is Gordy the Great Grasshopper. He's gonna make an ABC bug, but he's got a few left to do. Isn't that just fabulous? I'm not a clever artist like my husband, but I like to work with fabrics and do fabric art. And I just putz around with this stuff, and especially in the winter when I'm just hanging out.
One of our good friends and neighbors was Liza Ray, who was a pretty well-known harpist, but she was also the daughter of one of the King sisters and Albino Ray, who was a fairly famous Spanish
He invented the singing guitar.
He invented the singing guitar. Their kids grew up to become Arcade Fire, who out of Montreal were a world famous indie band, and still are. Shared food and music and good company, and I think that's the kind of people this town attracted, and I think that's the kind of feeling that you got when you came here.